By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to build a custom machine learning model without writing a single line of code. Now, this will be an image-based machine learning model, which will be able to predict the damage that a car has received based on an image that a user uploads. Using a combination of both Levity and Bubble, we're going to create an example based on an insurance website. So within this example, we're going to allow customers to submit an insurance claim whenever their car has been damaged. Now, throughout that process, they're going to be required to also upload an image of the car damage itself, from which we're going to then feed that into our machine learning model, and then it's going to make a prediction as to what type of damage category this claim should belong to. Now, if we're building a Bubble, you know firsthand how easy it is to create a full suite of advanced features, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today.
Awesome. Yes!
After we train our machine learning model, we're going to create an admin dashboard within our insurance website, which will allow employees for the insurance company to filter through a list of all of the claims by the damage category that was allocated to it from our machine learning model. Look, at this point, there's so much that I want to cover, so let's just grab our Bubble editor and we can dive right into it. Within our tutorial today, I've just created a list of all of the items that I want to walk through in order to not only create our AI model, but also integrate it in our Bubble application. And now this list here is just a personal preference that I have, but what I love doing whenever I'm working on any Bubble project is creating a list of all of the action items that I need to follow, so that way I can easily tick them off along the way. And now I personally use Notion to create this checklist, and I'll be sure to share a link to this checklist within the description of this video, so that way you can easily create a duplicate version of my checklist here. But what you'll see is that at the very top of our checklist, the first thing I wanted to cover was downloading the data set that we're going to use in order to train our machine learning model today. And now when it comes to creating an artificial intelligence model, or what you might have heard of as a machine learning model, what you essentially need to do is feed your model a large corpus of training data from which it will then determine a common list of patterns or attributes throughout that data. And once it starts finding common behaviors within that, that's when it can start making predictions on any other data that's inputted into it throughout the future. And so a good example of this, and this is actually what we're going to be building today within our tutorial, is that if we wanted our machine learning model to classify that a car has been damaged in a certain way, so let's say it has a smashed headlight, what we'd do is just source a bunch of different images of smashed headlights on cars, feed it to our machine learning model, and then after a while, it'd start to have a good idea as to what a smashed headlight would look like. So that way, if someone was to upload a photo of a smashed headlight, it can easily predict that that is in fact a smashed headlight because it matches the same patterns or characteristics as the previous images that it's trained on. And what you'll also find when you're training your machine learning model is that the more data you have, the better it will be at being able to predict things in the future. Because when you think of it, machine learning kind of works in the same way in which you learn as a human being. So the more exposure you have to something, the more you're likely able to learn throughout that process. And so that's why you'll always hear how important it is for machine learning engineers or even data scientists to source the most reliable training data that they can. And today I've actually gone ahead and I've sourced a data set that we're going to use. So it saves you the time of having to go and find your own data set. And if you're accessing my Notion checklist here, you'll be able to click on this link and it will take you straight to a drive where I've uploaded this data set. Of course, I'll also be sure to include a link to this within the description of the video itself. However, when you open up the drive folder, what you'll see is that this folder itself that we're going to download is currently compressed as a zip format. So what you'll just need to do is download this particular file. Then from here, you'll just need to uncompress this file on your local device. So if I was to just reduce the size of my browser, I can see that I have my compressed file here. Because I'm on a Mac, I can just double click this and it will automatically uncompress this file. Then within this, you'll see there is a folder, which is currently called cars. If we were to open this up here, I'm just going to expand my browser out there. And within this particular folder, what you'll see is that I've curated a series of images which contain photos of damaged cars. And these can include a few different types of damage categories. So for some of the images, you'll see that they have scratched doors, Others will have bumper dents, and there's even some with smashed headlights. Now, this folder contains a couple of hundred images within it. However, that is going to be enough to train our machine learning model today. And so before we took the time to upload this into our machine learning platform, I just wanted to make sure you could clearly see how this data was structured. So it's currently just a list of images. And now the names of all of these images won't really matter either, because later on when we train our model, we're going to annotate these with custom labels anyway. But I'll be sure to explain all of that in detail when we get to there. What I'd like to do though, once we've successfully downloaded the data source, is head over into the platform of choice today that we're going to be using in order to train and deploy our machine learning model. And that platform, if you haven't yet used it, is known as Levity AI. Now, Levity is an awesome no-code tool that allows you to train machine learning models that can easily be integrated within your Bubble app. And now I currently have Levity opened in a separate tab here. Now, Levity offers you a free 2-week trial, which just allows you to get familiar with how you can actually create and train your own machine learning model. And of course, that'll give you enough time to also follow along with this particular tutorial today. But one thing I should just point out is that when you create a Levity account, you'll just need to create this with a work email address. So you just won't be able to sign up with an account using things like a Gmail or a Hotmail address. Instead, if you've got your own custom domain for your app, you'll just need to register an email through that custom domain. Or perhaps if you are currently working for a company, you can use that existing email address as well. But once you've created your account, what you'll find is that you're redirected through to the homepage of Levity here. And it's on this page that we're going to start the process of creating our machine learning model. What I do actually really enjoy about Levity's homepage is that they have an existing list of templates that you can even use. So if you wanted to open this up, it's essentially going to take you through to a library of existing machine learning models. And if you have a dedicated use case that matches any of the existing templates, it can save you a ton of time having to build those from scratch. For the sake of our tutorial today though, I am going to build a new model from scratch, just so you can see the exact steps I use along the way. And so I'm going to scroll on down to this button here, which just mentions that I can create a new AI block. So an AI block in Levity is just another term for a machine learning model. And you'll see below here, this is an existing list of all of the different models I've created within this account. And these all have different use cases. Some are for classifying text, while others are used for classifying images. Now, when you select to create an AI block here, you'll be prompted to choose from one of the 3 options here. And so Levity has the power to create a machine learning model based on things like text data, PDFs, or even images. And I previously created a really helpful tutorial that works around a text classifier. So within that tutorial, I created a sentiment analysis model, which could just tell the sentiment rating for a customer's review on an e-commerce store. So if someone, let's say, typed in an angry review, Levity would be able to tell that that was in fact a negative review. And so that way then the store owner could quickly filter through all of the negative reviews that they have and then triage those by responding to that person. However, in today's tutorial, we're going to work with an image classifier use case. So in this case, we want to feed our model a bunch of different images. And then later on, when a user in our app uploads a new image, I want our machine learning model to be able to predict what labels should be associated with that image. So if someone, for instance, uploads an image of a car with a smashed headlight, I want our model to be able to recognize that it is in fact a smashed headlight. So I'm going to select on the image classifier option here. And then the first thing we'll need to do is just give a name to this AI block. So I'm going to call this insurance car damage classifier. And from here, we'll need to upload a series of images, which is known as our training data. And of course, these are all of the images stored within the file that we've downloaded. So I'm going to select to add a list of images here. Then within my files, I'm going to head to the cars folder that we had downloaded. And this is where we're storing all of the images within our training data set. What I'm going to do is select on the first image. Then I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom of the folder. Then I'm going to hold in the Shift key because I'm on a Mac. And from here, I will select the very last image within this folder. And that's just going to highlight and select every single image that's been uploaded into this folder itself. I'm then going to choose to open these within Levity. It'll then just take a moment to upload these images. And to save you having to watch me stare into a screen for the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to quickly skip ahead until this has been fully uploaded.
A few moments later.
Alright, so all of those images have successfully uploaded into my Levity AI block here. And in order to view these images, I'll just need to click on this unlabeled option here. And so if I select that, it's going to display all of the images I've uploaded. And it's at this point that we'll need to help train our machine learning model by labeling our images. So at this point in time, this is just a series of endless images of cars that have been damaged. And so right now, this doesn't really mean much to our machine learning model. So we of course need to create a way for it to recognize that this is a dent in a bumper, or that something like this is a scratch on a car door. And this process is by far the favorite feature of mine within Levity. It makes it super simple to label and properly classify all of your image data. And so within our dataset today, there's 3 types of car damage that I'm going to train. There's the first one, which is a door scratch. So for this image here, I can see that it has a scratch on the car door. So I'm going to click in the label field and I'm going to type in the word door scratch. I can then select enter. And what you'll find is that Levity has now created a new label and it's storing that image under that label. So if I was to click on my door scratch category here, it's going to display all of the images that have been labeled as a scratch door. But I can still see that within my training data set of 202 images, there's still 201 that need to be labeled. And this is where you'll start to see the superpowers of Levity come to life. So instead of having to select every image individually and manually give it a label, what you can actually do is shift click or even highlight a series of images. So I can see these 2 images here are also scratch doors. So I'm going to highlight both of these. I'll click on the label field and I'll select that these should be labeled as a door scratch. Then I can see below this I have a whole series of images that are all dented bumpers. And so I'm going to click on my first image here and I'm going to create a new label, which is going to be called bumper dent. And now that I've created a new label category, I'm going to select on my very first image here. I'm going to scroll on down and view all of the dented bumpers within this training data set, which I can see goes up to here. And then I'm going to hold in shift and click on the last image. And now you'll see it's selected all of these images within our training data set. I can then select on a label here and classify that all of these are dented bumpers. It will then remove them from our unlabeled folder and then store them within our bumper dent folder. I can then see the very last type of damage category is going to be our smashed light field, which is this image here. So I'm going to add a new label and I'm going to call this smashed light. I'll select enter. And now while I'm annotating and labeling all of my images, I can easily identify anything that's a smashed light and also label it under that category. So for this image here, I can see that this is in fact a smashed light. So I'm going to select that that should be marked as that. I can now see that all of these images are bumper dents. So I'm going to scroll on down until I stop seeing bumper dents. So if I keep scrolling, I can see that up to here is all bumper dents. So I'm going to highlight all of those and I will label those as bumper dents. And then you'll see here we have a category of smashed lights. So I can select on my first image, scroll on down until I stop seeing smashed lights here, which there is quite a few. So it'll go up to this particular section in our data set. I will then select on the last image and I will label these as all smashed lights. And then for the last category, which is our scratch doors, I'm going to click on the first image here, scroll on down, and I can just select all of the images with scratch doors, and I can label these under that particular category. Now I'm just going to quickly jump ahead and finish labeling all of the images within my dataset, but you'll just need to take the time to highlight all of the relevant images and annotate those with the relevant label. And then once we've done that, we can go ahead and actually start training our machine learning model. Alright, so I just finished labeling all of my images, and I can see that these are all tucked away nicely within each of the label folders. And now that we've taken the time to annotate and identify which images belong to which category, we can jump ahead and train our AI block, which just means that it's going to ingest all of this data that we're going to feed it, and it's going to learn from all of the examples that we've classified here, from which later on it will then be able to predict what the particular damage type is for an image that someone uploads. So I'm going to choose to train our AI block here. And then this model is just going to run in the background. And it'll also just display a small progress bar here, just so you can get an idea of how long this model is going to take to actually finish training. But again, instead of having you sit here and watch me breathe heavily while this waits, I'm just going to instead jump ahead and skip to the part where our model has finished the training process. Okay, so I am back and my model has finished successfully training. And as you can see, Levity has provided me with a performance score for this particular model here. And right now it's actually sitting at 100%, which is phenomenal for a machine learning model. Anything above 80% is relatively good. So I'm actually super impressed that this has turned out at 100%. So right now at this point in time, our model should be able to accurately guess what type of damage a car has received based on an image that's uploaded that sits within one of these three categories. And so in order to put this model into test, what we can actually do is select the next tab here, which is our test tab. And this will allow you to upload a sample image from which the model is then going to make a prediction on what type of label this image should be associated with. And so what I want to do is upload an image that's not within my training dataset. So I'm just going to open up a new tab here and I'm just going to type in smashed car headlight. I'm then going to jump over to the image tab and I'm just going to grab the very first image here, from which I'm then going to right click on this and just save a version of this to my desktop. I'm then going to jump back into Levity and open up the file on my computer where this image was saved to. I'll then drag this into our uploader here. Then Levity is going to go ahead and run our machine learning model on this particular image, and it's going to predict which particular label this image should be associated with. And in this instance, you'll see that it is 98% sure that this image is a smashed light. Now, one thing I should just point out is that the first time you upload an image into your test here, it might just take a bit of time for it to load. And that's just because your machine learning model is just going to need a little bit of time to fire up. But what you'll find is that any following images you upload after this are going to be predicted at a much faster pace. And if you really wanted to just double check your model, you could upload a series of different images that contain different car damage. So you could upload an image of a scratched door or even a bumper dent. But look, I'm pretty confident with the accuracy of our model at this point in time. And so before we jump ahead to the next step and actually connect our model with our Bubble application, what I want to do is just quickly jump back into my Notion checklist so we can just check off where we're up to within our overall build today. So at this point in time, we've taken the time to configure our dataset. So that was the process of downloading the dataset I provided us, as well as just taking a moment to review how that data was structured within that folder. We've also taken the time to create a Levity account. And then from there, we created our first machine learning model, which is also known as an AI block. And inside of that, we uploaded our training images. We added our custom labels, which allows our model to identify what type of car damage each image was. We then ran and trained our machine learning model. And just then, we had obviously ran a test to review the model's overall performance. And now it's at this point that I'd like to connect our model with our Bubble application. And I've actually already taken the time to build out a test application within Bubble that we're going to be using for our tutorial today. So if I just open up a Bubble editor here, as I previously mentioned at the start of our tutorial, today I'm going to be creating a use case where we have an insurance website for car insurance claims. And I want to essentially just create a form which allows a user to upload a brief description on a claim that they'd like to make, as well as an image of the damage to their car. And then once that form has been submitted, I'd like to run a workflow that not only creates a new insurance claim in our database, but then sends that image of the car through to our Levity model. So that way Levity can return what type of car insurance claim this will be, from which within an admin dashboard, we can then filter out all of the car insurance claims that are related to a particular type of damage. So if someone wants to filter out all of the claims that are based on a bumper dent, they'll be able to easily do that. And so within my application here, I've just created a very bare bones and basic page, which is just going to be a form that allows someone to upload an insurance claim. Now, I've just tried to pretty this page up with a header menu, but this actually has no relevance to our tutorial today, Essentially, what we're going to be focusing on is these two input fields here. So on my page, I've just added a multi-line input field. And of course, this field is just going to be used to allow someone to outline the details of a claim that they'd like to make. And then below that, I just have a standard picture uploader element, which is where someone can upload a picture of the incident or damage on their car. Now, another thing I should just point out is the structure of my database here today. So in a minute, I am going to walk you through the process of all of the workflows you'll need to create in order to make this feature functional. However, I just like to jump over into my data tab here because I just like to show you the data type that I've set up, which is going to power the rest of our app today. So of course, by default, you'll have a user data type within your application. Now I've just added two additional data fields under our user data type. One is going to be the name of a user, which is of course a text field, and the other is a profile photo, which is of course an image. I've then created a separate data type called insurance claim. So every single time someone makes a claim, I'm going to be creating a new insurance claim in my database. And then within this insurance claim data type, I have a couple of different fields. The first is going to be the claim number, which is actually just a text-based field. And to be honest, this isn't completely necessary, but essentially whenever someone creates an insurance claim, I'm just going to want to generate a unique number I can give to it. Then below this, there is our claim type. So this is the key field that I'm interested in having our machine learning model predict today. So for every claim that is submitted, we're going to upload an image as well as a summary text field. And based on the image that's uploaded, I'm going to feed that data to our machine learning model, in which case it's then going to return back a type of claim that this insurance claim belongs to. So is it, let's say, related to a smashed light, a dented bumper, or even a scratched door? And so this is just a brief overview of how I've structured my data type. As you can see, I've tried to keep things as bare bones and minimalistic as possible, just because I want to keep things relatively simple throughout our tutorial today. Now, if I jump back over into my design tab, before I build out the workflow that allows us to send this image to our machine learning model, what we'll need to do is install a free plugin which will allow our Bubble app to communicate with Levity. And so I'm going to head over to the plugins tab here. Now, I've already taken the time to install my Levity plugin, but what you'll just need to do is open up the plugin library, search for the word Levity, and install the free plugin. Then from here, what you'll see is that within our plugin settings, we'll just need to configure two API key fields. So this will just allow our Bubble app to successfully talk to our Levity account that we've created. And so if I was to jump over into Levity here, what I'm going to do is within our AI block, I'm going to select on the Connect tab, which is the final step within this model. Then if I scroll on down, I'm not going to select the option to integrate this with Bubble. This button will actually just open up the plugin library and prompt you to install the plugin, which we've already done. What I am interested in doing though is just grabbing the API key, which will allow Levity to speak to my Bubble app. So I'm going to select the API option here. Then what you'll see in the top right hand corner is this little hidden API key. What you'll want to do is click on this and reveal this API key. You'll then need to highlight this key, make a copy of it, then jump back into your Bubble editor. And before you paste this within the API key field, you'll just need to type in a manual value, which will just verify this API key. And the value you'll need to type in is the word token, followed by a space. And you'll just need to make sure that the T on the word token is capitalized. So it should look exactly like this. After I've added in the space, I'm then going to paste in my API key. Then I'll highlight all of this text, make a copy of that, and paste that within my API key dev field. And that is how you can easily make the connection between both your Bubble account and your Levity account. That's all we'll need to do for here. Then what we'll do from here is jump over into our design tab, and this is where we're going to start making our application functional. So as I mentioned, on this insurance claim form here, I just have two fields. One is a multi-line text field, and the other is a picture uploader. I also have a button down the bottom here, which I'm going to now create a new workflow every single time this button is clicked. And within that workflow, I'm going to create a new insurance claim within our application. So I'm going to choose to start a workflow here. Then within this workflow, there is actually going to be a couple of different steps. But the first thing I'd like to do is create a new insurance claim in my database. So I'm going to choose to head to my data tab, and I'd like to create a new thing. The type of thing I'd like to create is going to be an insurance claim. And then I'll just need to match all of the relevant data fields in our database with the matching fields from our page. So I'm just going to start by selecting the image field. For this value, I'd like to store the image within our picture uploader on the page. It's as simple as that. Then I'd like to update the summary text for this claim. And I'd like this to equal the value of the multi-line input on our page. Then from here, I'd just like to add a claim number to this particular insurance claim. And now again, this isn't completely necessary within our application, but today I just wanted to create a custom number or a unique ID that's going to be added to our insurance claim. Just so later on when I build out a dashboard to display a series of insurance claims, every single one of these will have a unique claim number. Now within Bubble, there's plenty of different ways you can associate a number with a particular data entry. You can use things like its unique ID, or you could even just add a static value of a particular number. However, today I'm just going to insert dynamic data and I'm going to choose the option to calculate a formula. Because within this, you'll be able to calculate a random string of text, in which case I'd like this to be a random string of numbers. So I'm just going to say that this string of characters should be 10 characters long, and then I'll also tick that this should only use numbers within this random string. So every single time a claim is created in our database, it's going to have a unique claim number, which is just going to be a string of 10 numbers. I'll then choose to close this. And this is all we'll need to include for this step of our workflow. You'll notice that within the field that recognizes the claim type, I haven't yet added a value in this. And that's because I'm going to want to send the image of this claim through to Levity, and then have Levity populate the type of claim that this belongs to. So I'm just going to delete this field for now, and add an additional step within my workflow. And before I actually send through the image to our Levity model, what I'd like to do is just choose to, first of all, reset the relevant inputs on our page. So if someone uploads, let's say, an image as well as some text into both of our input fields here, then they submit this claim, what I'd like to do is just refresh all of the values of these input fields, just so that way the values don't permanently sit inside of these fields. So if I jump to my workflow editor, I'm going to add an additional step, and I'm going to select the recommended action here, which will allow me to reset the relevant input fields on our page. Now, if I really wanted, what I could also do is display an alert message on my page, just to notify the user that their claim has in fact successfully been submitted. So if I jump to my design tab, I actually already have an alert message on this page. So if I head to my elements tree, I can see I just have a hidden alert message. If you're relatively new to Bubble and you wanted to add your own alert message, just head to your visual elements and you'll see to add an alert message here. An alert message is just a great way to temporarily display a message to a user. So by default, this is hidden when the page is loaded, and it will only temporarily fade in and display whenever you call it within a workflow, which is exactly what we're going to do. So if I jump to my workflow editor once again, I'm going to add an additional step to this workflow. If I head to my element actions, right down the bottom, I'll see the option to show an alert message. And because I only have one alert message on my page, it's automatically going to select that by default. And the reason why I'm adding in an alert is just so that way I can easily notify the user that their claim has successfully been submitted. But now that the user knows that their claim has been submitted, what I'd like to do is now send the image from this insurance claim through to our Levity AI model, in which case I'd like it to predict what the claim type should be. And so if I add an additional step within this workflow, I'm just going to type in the word Levity. And from here, you'll see one of two options. There's the option to classify an image based on its URL, or there's the option to classify text. In this case, because we're working with an image-based model today, we're going to click on the classify image URL option. And then from here, this is where we'll just need to link this particular workflow step to the relevant AI block that we've created within our Levity account. And so by default, what you'll see is that there are some pre-existing values within our workflow fields here. And we're actually going to need to replace these with values of our own. So for the path field here, this just refers to the specific AI block you'd like to leverage within your Levity account. So if I jump over into Levity, and if I was to open up the connection through the API option, you'll see here you have a classifier ID, which allows you to just reference this particular machine learning model that you've just created. And so in this case, I'm just going to highlight my classifier ID. I'll make a copy of that. Then if I jump back into my Bubble editor, for the path model, I'm going to remove this text and I'm going to paste in the value from my Levity model. And so that way Bubble now knows to communicate with that particular AI block. And then for the image that we'll be sending Levity, this is going to be the image that's stored within our picture uploader element. And you'll see that this will need to be structured as a URL. So whenever someone uploads an image into this particular picture uploader, Bubble's going to store that within a server. And if you ever want to reference that image, you'll just be able to reference the URL of where it sits within Bubble's server. However, one thing I should just point out is that if I was to take a preview of this application here, and if I just jump ahead and upload an image into this picture uploader, what I've actually done is also taken the time to add in a text element below the picture uploader itself. And I'm having this text element pull the URL of the image that's uploaded into our Bubble server. So if I just jump back into Bubble quickly, I'll select on the text element. And what you'll see is that I've just referenced the picture uploader on our page, the value of the image stored within it, and I'm just now displaying the URL of where that image is stored. And look, the reason why I wanted to add this text element onto our page is just because if you look at how this URL is structured here, you may notice one thing about it, and that is that at the front of this URL, it doesn't have the HTTP or HTTPS path. So this isn't currently structured like a regular URL. Whereas within the workflow that we were just creating, so if we open up our Bubble editor, jump back into our workflow tab, you'll see that the URL within our body field is structured with the HTTPS path. So this is structured as a proper URL. And so what we're going to do today is just select into this field, remove all of this text. Then I'm going to add in some static text. So I'm going to type in the letters HTTPS followed by a semicolon. And then from here, I can reference the existing URL for any image that's uploaded into our Bubble server. So you'll see here it has the 2 forward slashes and then the actual address of the URL itself. So if I wanted to dynamically reference the image that was uploaded into this picture uploader, I'll jump back into Bubble. I will select next to our HTTPS path, from which I can then insert dynamic data and then just reference the picture uploader, the value of the image that's been uploaded to it, its URL path. And now that will properly structure the body URL for this image. And at this point, it would send this information through to Levity, in which Levity would then return its prediction based on what type of damage it believes this insurance claim to be. And of course, it'll pull those values based on the labels we had customized within our model. And so once Levity returns its prediction, I'd like to add an additional step within my workflow, and I'd like to update the field for our insurance claim that just recognizes what the claim type actually is. So within our data tab, I'd like to make changes to an existing thing in our database. And the thing I'd like to change is the insurance claim that was created in step 1 of our workflow. And so in order to reference that, I can easily pull the data from result of step 1 in our workflow, which was an insurance claim. I can then choose to modify any of the data fields for this insurance claim. And in this case, I'd like to update the claim type. And for the value I'll be storing in this field, I'd like to pull the prediction that Levity has made from step 4 in our workflow. So I'd like this to equal the result of step 4 in our workflow, the prediction's most likely label choice. So that just means that Levity is going to predict the label that is most suited to this particular image. So I'll select this choice here. And then that is all we'll need to create within this particular workflow. So at this point in time, just to reiterate, we would have created a new insurance claim. We would have then notified the user that that claim has been submitted. Then we would have sent the image from that claim through to our Levity model, in which case it would then feed that data back through to our database and give the insurance claim a claim type, which is based on the label it thinks is most appropriate for the image that was uploaded. And so let's just jump ahead and now take a preview at what this whole experience is going to look like. Over in a preview of my app here, I might just reduce the width of my screen so you can see everything in my browser, as well as just move my head out of the way there. Then on my page that contains my form, I'd just like to add in a small text-based summary of the incident I'm reporting. So as a user, I could just type something in like my car was rear-ended in traffic today, full stop. Then I would like to upload an image of the damage of my car. Now I've just jumped ahead and I've also sourced a random image from Google Images. So I'm going to upload this into my picture uploader. Then from here, I'm going to submit my claim. What you'll see is that the input fields will refresh, the alert message will be displayed at the top, and then Bubble would have sent the image that was uploaded in our picture uploader through to Levity, in which case it would have made a prediction of what that claim type should be. And of course, for this claim, it should have been a bumper dent. Now, in order to view a list of all of the claims that have been submitted, as well as what Levity's prediction was for that claim type, I've gone ahead and I've created another page within our Bubble editor. I'm just going to move my browser back out, and over in my page drop-down menu, I've just created a page that I've called the insurance dashboard. So if, let's say, I was the person who is managing an insurance company, this page is just going to be used to display a list of all of the insurance claims that have been submitted by our users. So I've just added a repeating group onto my page here, which if I was to just open up the data source, what you'll see is that it's searching through my database for insurance claims, and it's just searching for all of the insurance claims that have been created. Then within each of the repeating group fields here, I'm just displaying some details about the customer's name, their email, the claim type, and then the claim number. And now, of course, this claim type field here is going to be dynamically generated based on our Levity machine learning model. So it's going to populate this field for us. Now, if I was to take a preview of this page here, what you'll be able to see within my repeating group is the claim that we have just submitted. So we've got our customer's name, the email address of their account, a random string of text which was generated under our claim number. But you'll also see here that Levity has populated our claim type field, and it's recognized that that claim that we had submitted should be classified as a bumper dent. And this is where you can really start to see the power of our Levity machine learning model come to life. So it was easily able to dynamically classify what type of claim type this particular insurance claim should be. So it'll save someone hours having to manually annotate and classify every single claim that comes into your system. And of course, when it comes to building anything inside of Bubble, why not take things that little step further, because it's so damn easy to create so many awesome features. And so what I've done here today is I've added a drop-down menu onto our page, which is going to display all of the different claim types that are possible. And what I'd like to do is just create a way to filter this repeating group by whatever claim type is selected within this drop-down menu. So if we just jump into Bubble really quickly, what I'd like to do is just show you a quick glance of how I've set up this drop-down menu. So essentially, I've just added in a standard drop-down input onto our page, and I've left this as a static list of choices. Now, for all of the choices, I've added in all of the same labels that we've added into our Levity machine learning model. So these are things like our door scratch, our bumper dent, and our smashed light. And now one thing I should point out is that I've spelt these the exact same as how I've spelt them within Levity. So if I'd used a capital, I added the capital, and if I'd used a space, I also added the space. And what this will allow me to do is create a match between the drop-down values here and the values that Levity associates with any image that's uploaded to an insurance claim. And so once you add a drop-down menu onto a page, you can select on your repeating group. And you may remember that for this repeating group, we just had a data source which was performing a search for all of the insurance claims in our database. And if we'd like to filter these claims by the relevant incident type selected from this drop-down menu, what we can do is select on our data source here, and we can add a constraint to this data search. In which case, I'd just like to display only the insurance claims where the claim type equals the same value as the option selected from our drop-down field. So I'm just going to select the drop-down incident type, its value. Now, of course, by default, this drop-down menu won't have an option selected. So what we're going to have to do is select this option here to ignore empty constraints, which just means that if someone has not selected an incident type from this drop-down menu, this field won't be searched, and it will just default back to displaying all of the insurance claims in our database. And so what I'm going to do is just close this here. I'm going to quickly jump ahead and add a few additional insurance claims into our database. And then I'm going to run another preview of this app and just show you how this feature is now going to function. Over in another preview of my app here, I've just opened up my admin dashboard. And of course, as I mentioned, I've jumped ahead and I've created some additional insurance claims. At this point in time, all I can tell is that this Lachlan Kirkwood folk here is an absolute terrible driver because he's had a whole series of additional insurance claims that is added into our database. But nonetheless, he is a great test dummy for us because we can see that our Levity model has successfully predicted all of the different insurance claim types, which of course was based on the image that was uploaded to the insurance claim. Now let's say me as the owner of this application or insurance company would just like to filter all of these claims by, let's say, the bumper dent claim type. What I could do is scroll on up to my drop down menu here and select the bumper dent option. It's then going to filter all of these claims by this particular claim type. If I'd like to then even filter out all of the claims that are relevant to door scratches, I could select that option. And of course, I can easily see what the claim number is for this particular insurance claim. So that way, if I had something like a CRM, I could go through and view all of the details for this particular claim. But that is all I wanted to cover with this particular feature here. This definitely wasn't completely necessary within your build, but I just wanted to show you how you could successfully integrate some sort of machine learning feature into your Bubble application in a real world setting. What I'd love to do though now is just jump back into my Notion checklist that I had originally created for us today. And what we can do is actually tick off that we've finished not only connecting our Levity machine learning model with Bubble through the API keys, but we'd built out our Bubble integration, which of course required us to build out the workflow as well as then feed the image from our insurance claim through to our Levity model. And then from there, once Levity had successfully made a prediction on what the claim type would be, we'd built out the feature that allows the insurance admin to filter through a list of all of the claims by their claim type. And that would then allow them to quickly triage any particular claims, as well as keep a tab on how many claims are being submitted for any particular label. And just like that, that is everything I actually wanted to cover within this tutorial here. It actually blows my mind that you can create a fully custom machine learning model and integrate that with a fully functional web app without writing a single line of code using a combination of both Levity and Bubble. Just when you thought you knew enough about no code, platforms like Levity bounce onto the scene and completely change what's possible. And I'm super excited to see all of the use cases out there for machine learning and Bubble. So be sure to tag me in anything you build so I can check it out. And that is all from me in this tutorial today. If you wanted to stay up to date with any additional Bubble resources that I share, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be the first to know when I drop any new tutorials. In the meantime, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I wish you all of the best on your own no-code journey.